Hello, everyone. Sorry, we have a technical problem and we need to ask you to come to this Zoom channels. Um, I will start from now. Uh, I'm Walk the Rock from Yes No Club and one of Nusasonic curators. I'm very happy to see you here to be part of the discussion panel on usual business, decentralizing, and commoning music. And I hope you are safe and sound in this uncertain time. This panel is part of Nusasonic's Gather, Share, Evolve series. This series aims to intensify capacity building and knowledge sharing among music and sound artists in Southeast Asia and beyond via a series of online panel discussions and workshops. We adapted the condition of COVID-19 and decided to shift our activities online since last year. So over the next few weeks, we presented 4 workshops and 2 panels, which you can check the details at our website, nusasonic.com. Nusasonic is a multi-year project that plunges into a broad spectrum of experimental sound and music cultures in Southeast Asia, enabling dialogue within the region, with Europe and beyond. Adopting a multi-perspective approach, the project is collaboratively created by Yesno Club from Yogyakarta, Wasak Festival from Manila, Play Freely Blackaji from Singapore, and CTM Festival from Berlin. And Nusasonic is an initiative of the Goethe Institute in Southeast Asia. So today's discussion will be moderated by Nuraini Juliastuti from Kunci Study Forum and Collective. Nuraini is a translocal practicing researcher and writer focusing on arts organization, activism, illegality, and alternative cultural production. And to start the discussion, we invite Ruli Shabara from Senyawa to give us a brief presentation of the Alkisah project.
Yeah.
And during the session, you are encouraged to comment and ask questions on the chat box here. And we will pass it to Nuraini, where hopefully the panelists will be able to address towards the end of the session. And please note that we do not tolerate any racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, ableist, or other forms of discriminatory behavior. Okay, now I hand it over to Ruli.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4, go.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for Nusasonic for providing the opportunity for us to keep retailing the stories of Alkisah and then try to keep contextualizing it to and see what is the relevance of this project in the real world, in the real situation. So yeah, and let me share the screen. I want to show you something. Yeah, so Alkisah is the latest experiment by Senyawa that is exploring the idea of power and the concept of it. So we are experimenting with a very simple but essential thing that for us, which is power. So the experiment is pretty simple, which is what happens when the artists let go of power and control over their own work. So that is the basic idea of the project, which is an experiment. It's a start with a question. So because it naturally creates this decentralization, because in terms of sharing the ownership, meaning anyone who participate can have ownership of the new unpublished, unreleased material, not only the music, but yeah, but everything else. And then the participating label also have the freedom to exploit, meaning we also release the stems via Yes No Wave, meaning they can exploit it to remix, to rework, or even to do whatever they want. Also, the artworks there, and then freedom to distribute in any kind of format, and then freedom to capitalize it, to make money out of it. That is also allowed, meaning they have all the powers, right? And the method that we use is through quite a common practice in the underground, especially, which is called co-releasing. Co-releasing is something that's been there and been used in a very effective way, and we use this method through an open call, and then the participating label who decide to work with this will have the decision-making authority in these things, like designing the album cover, decide what kind of format they will be releasing it. You know, because they also have the stamps. That means they can curate their own version of the album in any way they want, and also they can remaster it, master it themselves, because they have the stamp files, right? Meaning they can offer, if they don't like the sound, I think it's better with this kind of sound, by all means. And then distributing it, writing their own narrative, if the labels have or collective have some sort of vision that match with the theme, use that for that kind of vision that you want, you know. So, and also of course the promotion style and the merchandising. Now, but still, freedom doesn't mean really free, right? We have to have a guideline, so it's not gonna be too chaotic. So what we tried to do was this: everything has to be based on negotiation. That is the basic value that is missing a lot. And then that is why here is we provide guidelines, like if, for example, if they want to release vinyl, what if we do together, like bulk press them, and then so because it will be minimize the waste of multiple master lacquers that will be made, which is a waste, right? Because we can just have one and then do it together. But if they do their own mastering, of course they have to do it separately, you know. But or not. So if they don't want to join, they can press themselves, which is totally fine. And then for Indonesian label, we do the same thing, but with tapes and CDs, or not. Again, they can decide they have the options to not do it that way, you know. And then we have artworks that we use for the albums if they want. And these artworks are being created at the same time as the music. So it has the real, just to emphasize the value of the artworks that we provide, is the artworks is not made after the music. It's made together when the music are being made, recorded. The artist Chopin draw it, and he's got like we offer 8 of them to be used by the labels or not. And then about the sales, you know, also negotiable everything. Even though we don't take any percentage from the remixes, that's 100% for the artists and the labels. And then, but for the album itself, the Alkisah album, of course, we have to talk about how we're gonna do this, but of course, negotiable. And then also the period of sales report, because each label will have their own pace, their own capacity, their own timelines. So of course, and then their own pace, yeah. So it's all negotiable, and of course the release date. And this is, I'm not gonna talk this in detail. It's just showing that what are the characterization if you were gonna go this way, because it's an experiment. We see how it's gonna go. So trying to see, for example, what we do here and what we have here, right? Are we going to a full decentralization, and see based just on this category definitions. And we see, for example, the license in this project doesn't have really full authority, because here you have to use Creative Commons, right? So a little bit of freedom are being taken away here. It's not full, but is it a good thing or not? We don't know. Now is the current state. Wait. The album is by 20 May is released by 50. But if you want to go technical, so it's not 44 or 41 to be exact. It's actually 50. Because some labels have like not only one, but actually like Bali, for example, Sandria is here is going to explain that there are many labels as well that were not being properly, not being officially included in the, but it's all in the websites. And then from 37 cities in 18 countries, so far we have 3,000 vinyls being pressed, 2,000 CDs, 1,200 cassette tapes, at least 35 original cover artworks, and different kind of merch that they, be creative and go crazy. Also, what is most important, interesting thing for me from this in this project is this: by now we have 170 official remixes that was curated by the labels, with at least 19 different kind of style of cover arts, and then 38 and counting, because it's still coming, remixes done by people outside of the label that using the stems released by Yes No Wave. That is the most interesting. And then all of that information, we try to compile it in a simple way so you can navigate easier. The easiest way is through the map that Morgan is helping build this map, actually. Wait, do you see it? Yeah, do you see it? Yeah.
I can put a link. I think it's in the doc. Just a second. Where did those links go?
You can see it?
No.
I can't see it where you are.
Wait, sorry.
Just put the link on the chat and we can move on.
Ah, okay. I think they have that. Okay, that's yeah, and then sorry.
Here's the link. I just put it in the chat.
Okay. Yeah.
Up there is the link for the Google map of all participating labels. Okay.
Aduh, nggak bisa. Sorry, my internet suddenly. Yeah.
I can also share if you like.
Well, anyway, we have like the links in the link tree that Morgan is going to share, and then inside we have websites that that you can browse any names from the remix artists that you want, or the links directly to the labels. Each labels is all available in the website, and all the information in the link tree. And then from this project, we have noted some problems and potential issues, of course. There are some, like for example, we all still using centralized platform, like digital platforms, like Bandcamp. The project is very Bandcamp focused. It seems like that, because most of these labels are using Bandcamp, which is kind of more popular, but it's also transparent in a way to use. So, and also administration, because this project creates a lot of administrative things that need to be taken care of. I think this project require teams, for example, to do a bigger one or better ones to make it even effective. And also licensing. There are still a lot of problems that we're facing with this one, because we still don't know how to move forward quite high. And then misinformation, because people will try to see this as many different kind of perspective. There are some potential solutions here that we think that I'm not gonna discuss this. This is more on hypothesis. It's better to hear from you guys today about your own perspective, and we'll put it in the list for the solution. And then now we have ongoing development at the moment. Reza Darwin from Senyawa Mandiri is making a documentary about the project Alkisah in terms of of this kind of thing, the decentralization, the exclusivity rights, etc. And also academic paper is almost finished, written by Luigi Montiani, from an anthropologist from Italy, who also released Alkisah via Arte Tetra in Milan, and then and also your Alkisah playlist. Every week we have this playlist curated by the listeners from all around the world. They can submit their own version of it, and then it will eventually become an Alkisah radio. I think so far the project's here, but it's not gonna end here. Of course, we'll see what comes next. We don't know, right? So that's it. I think. Sorry for a bit of technical problem there, but thank you.
Thank you, Ruli, for quite insightful presentation for Alkisah project. So at least everyone understand about what is it. And now I pass it to Nuraini Juliastuti, who is moderating the panel today.
Hi everyone, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Nuraini Juliastuti. You can call me Nuraini or Nuning. Some friends call me Nuning as well. Thank you, Wo and Maya, Ruli, and everyone to invite me to moderate the discussion. I'm very happy to be here. I'm a writer and researcher. The panelists for our discussion today are part of the participating record labels and artists in Alkisah project. They are Sandria Komalasari from Chaos Non Musica from Bali, Ziad Nawfal, Ruptured, based in Beirut, Sarah Badar, Fractal, based in Riga and Cairo, and Morgan Sully, Soydivision, Berlin, Ruli Shabara, who just introduced the concepts behind the Alkisah project, is also still be here. So together we will discuss about the layered dimensions of decentralization and try to contextualize it within our practices and social realities. So in Senyawa's Alkisah, I shall also clear from Ruli's presentation, decentralization is intended to deconstruct monopoly power, as Ruli also mentioned, and control as the main principles in the usual intensive capitalization of the music industry. It also aims to experiment further with sharing culture and free distribution as a common practice of independent musicians and record labels. And this is an experiment that designed to create a new system of distribution and more sustainable networks of people in the wider art and culture ecosystem. And in turn, it emerged as a transnational project with a strong cosmopolitan character, something that is apparent from the composition of our panelists today. I just want to say a few things, my reading from Alkisah project so far. I want to contextualize decentralization strategy within the discourse on care and sustainability to figure prominently among independent cultural workers, not only in Indonesia, but also beyond. My observation is that this is the period where the creative expression is really catching up with the discussion about sustainability and well-being of the artists and cultural workers. We can talk more about how should we use other word about well-being, but let's just stick with that word at the moment. So artists and cultural workers do not only think about their works, but also attempt to build more meaningful relationships with the surroundings and the people. And I think it's also important here to situate Alkisah within Senyawa's plan to reflect more on something that they term daya hidup. This is an Indonesian word meaning survivability and kemandirian, which means independency for the next decade. So it seems apt to regard Alkisah as a distribution scenario and probably one of the possible solutions to deal with the uncertainties in the current pandemic climate. So I have two basic questions to address in the course of this discussion. How does Alkisah propel us to reimagine the infrastructure of production and distribution? How can it be directed to develop a shared pool of resources? But I have to admit though, when I learned about the word decentralization being the core concept of Alkisah project, as a kid growing up under the New Order regime, I perceive decentralization rather differently. After Reformation 1998 in Indonesia, decentralization emerged as one of the results of the politics of reform. But what has happened in Indonesia, as we all know, along with the idea of decentralization, is that the multiplication of the new would-be authoritarian regimes imbued with religion authoritarianism that spread across provinces and islands. So we have that kind of history, but Alkisah is an unusual business as the title of this discussion. So we will talk about like a utopian or micro-utopian concepts and how to realize it. And this is the ground that I hope we can explore together during the discussion. To start our discussion, first, I want to invite Sandria Komalasari or Sansan to talk about Chaos Non-Musica's involvement in Alkisah and the organization experience during the production of the Chaos Non-Musica's version of Alkisah. But first, I'm going to read Sandria's bio. Sandria Komalasari is an Indonesian writer, editor, and researcher with deep interest in history of conciseness, violence of memory, youth culture, and social movements. She's also the person behind Nirkin, her solo audio project after decades of reluctance to create her own music project. That's the bio. And now Sandria is one of Chaos Non-Musica, a Bali-based collective which started by organizing DIY gigs intended to be a safe space for equal conversation in which noise and experimental is not a mere formality or even a kitsch to show. Sandria, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. I'm Sandria. I'm here on behalf of Chaos Non-Musica. So let's go straight through. If we're talking about decentralization, so we are one of the records label that also released Alkisah Senyawa album. And when we were first trusted to be part of this decentralization project, our first initial idea was we don't want to this concept of decentralization which Senyawa proposed about how the experimentation of importance of the network and collective-based alternative community just stop in our records label. So we try to create a further connection with other records label in Bali and have this decentralization project to bring this decentralization project to a smaller scale in Bali specifically at the time. So that's why we invite 5 other records. Actually, we opened to more records at the time, but yeah, this is the records that respond. They were like independent, active label in Bali with the same like mindset about how to organize things and how to release album. So that's why we have Ahoy Records, Scholism Records, Momokyun, SDF, and Badung Dix as part of our decentralization within decentralization in Bali. And also we want to share the idea about decentralization, not just stop at us, right? We want to spread the idea further, because this is a good chance for everyone to learn more that wait, we can do this together. It's not just us. We can do this as a strong collectives of friends and networking of friends, that we can do this together. So that's how exactly the main idea why we invite other records label in Bali to be part of us. But also this is another strategy, because our collective is basically a DIY collective. So we know perhaps it will be better if we do it together with others. So we can be stronger, we can create something more solid together rather than just to do it by ourselves with our limitation. And yeah, also the idea of as for the artists, we do invite for the remixes. We invite friends who based in Bali or think that Bali as their home, and where they see Bali as the important, important part of their creative project. But we also invite, because a lot of people think that Chaos dan Musica is just noise experimental collective, but actually that's perhaps our base, but we really open, and indeed we really want to create a collaboration with whatever genre you can call. So it's not just noise experimental. That's why we invite some friends who not part of noise experimental scene, but they're supporting us, and also they have same mindset about sharing ideas about decentralization. They also and also some of them actually never had a project like remix project before, so it's quite interesting to invite them to be part of this project. It's like a give them challenge to be how they see Senyawa in their creative mind. So yeah, basically that's about how we involve friends to be, not just friends, but artists that we believe we can do this together. We can share this idea together, and we can be stronger together as a collective, And anyway, if you guys want to, should we show you the Senyawa album? Do you think should I show it now? Okay.
Yes.
So
before we continue.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, we can show it before we move on to the next panel. Yes.
Okay. Just a short one. So we basically we release for physical releases, double CD format, for the remix, for the Senyawa Alkisah and the remixes, and we make it, we use origami. Actually, this is like part of our how to see, Alkisah. A lot of people think this is quite a heavy, when they listen to the song, when they read, listen to the lyric, they say, "Oh, why it's so hard to understand?" But actually, this is what you do and think almost every day about this idea of living that actually it was written in your mind. Actually, that's why we do this. That's also part of the idea why we make this. So here, there. So this
That's
is
amazing.
Wow.
Thank you, guys. But this is
And you
also
hold it back.
Beautiful.
okay. Wait, I want to show you like this, right? So this is the, and we want to show because Sopeng artwork is very detailed actually. So that's why we want to make it big, so you can see like in the detail of every story that he shared about Senyawa when he made it. So anyway, and this is also part of the game. It looks like it's hard to 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 make it back into a real. Even sometimes it's not easy for me. But yeah, but once you understand how to fold it and unfold it, it's not that hard, And also, yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, this is Senyawa.
so ill. That's so sick.
Yeah, yeah. Alkisah.
Oh.
So yeah, but also there's other thing, surprise thing once we release it next month. Okay, wait for it, guys. And also for the vinyl, yeah, this is just thankfully we have the marble white vinyl on it. And this is actually no one expected because Musica can release vinyl. But anyway, yeah, maybe that's the strength because we share the idea with other friends, so we can do it together. But anyway, within this vinyl, you will get special scent for us that we imagine. When you explore the Senyawa realm, this is this is spices, Nusantara spices. So yeah, while you listen to it, and maybe this is what Senyawa's friend had in mind when they created. Well, we just reinterpret it. Maybe it's not totally right. So that's how we interpret Alkisah. Sorry, I think I talk too much. But yeah, maybe that's for now. To explain.
Thank you, San.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's very beautiful, and I think
Yes.
I think your presentation shows how this idea of decentralization also transform distribution into like a network of people who care, who not only interpret the music but also care about the music. So I think that's also something that we can potentially discuss, like beyond the discourse of music as well, like you just mentioned, that this is maybe not about music, but also about a sense of independence and networking, and how we can make the idea of living together like really grounded. So thanks. Now we move to another presenter, Ziad Nawfal from Ruptured in Beirut. I think I'm going to read Ziad's short bio. Ziad Nawfal is a DJ, radio host, music promoter, and producer based in Beirut. He has spent the better part of the last 25 years exposing Lebanon and the world to the country's local and regional independent music talent. Thanks to his long-running radio shows, Ruptures and Tukalash, on Radio Lebanon. In 2008, Nawfal co-founded independent music label Ruptured with Lebanese studio owner and engineer Fadi Tabal, with the intent to promote and produce emerging alternative talent from Lebanon and the Middle Eastern region. Since 2013, he is the managing director of Irtijal, the first and foremost festival for experimental music in Lebanon. And I learned that this is a festival which connect Ziad in Ruptured and Senyawa as well. So Ziad, the floor is yours.
Hello. Irtijal is actually the festival that played in when they came to Lebanon a few years ago. And that was my first time watching them perform live. Of course, I knew the records, and I knew the record they had released for Morphine Records, but I had never seen them perform live, and it was a mind-shattering revelation. And it's actually the only time I've seen Senyawa perform live, and I'm very grateful that they decided to come that year with our common friend Rabia. And I mentioned the name of Rabia from Morphine Records because he is the one who called me one day and said, "Have you seen Senyawa's call for participation?" I said, "No, what are you talking about?" Lebanon has been in the middle of economic, social, financial crisis for the past 2 years. So we're very much living in our own small, tiny bubbles, trying to survive on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. And so when Rabia mentioned this this project of globally releasing Alkisah, I had no idea about what he was talking about, but I rushed home to read the description of the project that Ruli and Wukir had put online, and this was my introduction to the project, and then I had to find ways to make it work, which was a bit more complicated. So what we did here in Lebanon is that we tried to merge our efforts. So the Alkisah Lebanese edition is not released by Ruptured. It's released by Ruptured and another label called An-Nihaya. So it's two labels coming together to release it, and we've asked a very cool and wonderful local studio called Studio Safar to design a cover for it. So it's literally a meeting of different minds and a meeting of different artists trying to bring this project to life, because alone I would not have been able to manage it. So Studio Safar and Nihaya, Ruptured, and then all of the different remixers who worked on it, because we were very eager to release a remix album for Alkisah. A lot of the Lebanese producers and remixers who worked on the remix album felt a very close connection with the lyrics, with the texts, because Ruli had sent us translations of the lyrics, and so I passed these on to the musicians, and I told them, this is what this album is about. It deals with power, with loss of power, with humans turning on each other. And this is something that we in Lebanon can very much relate to in this day and age. I mean, we've always been able to relate to it, but in the last 2 years, we've been going through absolute social mayhem. So this album came at the most perfectest time for us. And I'm sure Rabia felt this, and that is why he reached out to me to produce it. What else can I tell you about it? I discovered something very interesting, is that a lot of the words in Indonesian also mean something in Arabic. And so the remixers, whether it's Aya from Egypt or Anthony from Beirut, would call me and tell me, Istanna means wait in Arabic. Is that what the song means, to wait? And I would tell them, no, it means something else. But if you can relate to that word, then go ahead and relate to it. And even the title of the album, Alkisah, Alkisah is a word in Arabic that signifies the story, and this album is telling a story. So what I'm trying to say is that for many reasons and on several levels, us in Beirut here, whether it's the people who worked on producing the album or the people who worked on remixing it, felt a very, very close connection to the album.
Thanks, Ziad. Are you finished the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much. I think, yeah, I think it's good that you're making connections with because that's something that I observe as well. Even though this is something that is grounded on democratization concept, but there is going back and forth between the record as a kind of commodity and a gift, because everyone, the record label, every artist is trying to make their own version and make it something special, which to my mind is really like it's like a translation process as well. Like you mentioned that there are you found lots of similarity or resemblance that emerge between Indonesian language and Arabic as well. So you found like a meaning. Yeah, I think now we move on to the next presenter, Sarah from Fractal is one of the participating artists engaged in one of the record label in Amman to produce Alkisah's version. I think I'm going to read Sarah bios first. Fractal is the solo experimental project of British Egyptian interdisciplinary artist Sarah Bader, a classically trained multi-instrumentalist. She works with live sampling and improvisation, vocal manipulation, field recordings, generate rhythms to compose intensely emotive and immersive exploration of sound. Her sets and mixes often blend disparate styles, challenging preconception of tradition and geography. I think when I listen to Ziad presentation, I also there is a strong sense of cosmopolitan and transnational character that I think that also applies to Sarah as well, because that's the two characters that makes this kind of project also working. So I think Sarah, please, the floor is yours.
Hello. Yeah, so I participated as a musician in this project. I had found out about the project, I think someone had posted something on Twitter. This is before anyone contacted me. And it caught my attention because there have been, I think, attempts in the past to explore how music can be distributed in a different way. Whether it was, I think, through BitTorrent or, to try to break out of the traditional label distribution chain. So when I received an email from Drowned by Locals, I had worked with them once before. It's quite a new label in Amman. I think their first release was sometime in 2020 in September. And they also have a show on Maazif, which is based in Tunis, a radio station. So I got to know them through this show, and I was really surprised when they sent me an email about this, because at first I was like, I think I had read about this somewhere, and it was to remix a track of our choice from the album, and they also sent the lyrics and had mentioned that there will be a festival as well that will go along with the releases, and if we wanted to put together videos, and even that there was the choice, for example, some people put together videos not simply for their remixes, but also to showcase whatever that they wanted to showcase in that, was it a 48-hour stream? So it was really exciting, especially at a time when there is this conversation about what does it mean to be an independent artist? What does it mean to be an independent label? The fact that there is, one of the things about the internet and having accessibility and being able to put things out there is that on the one hand, there's an abundance of work. And this is a wonderful thing, but in order to be able to find it, you need to be either part of a community or a network, or you need to have your attention somewhere. And this is tricky. What really was extremely impressive and I think different about this was that you're not only changing the method of distribution and also kind of the premise of the creation of the work, but you're also then tapping into, like Sansan said, these other networks, your networks helping networks. So through something like Pasar Alkisah, the fact that there's this 48-hour stream where you're not only is your own work featured, but you're also being exposed to the work of others that you might not have ever come across before. It was an incredible, like that weekend was extremely fascinating, visually, musically. It was extremely enjoyable, and especially at a time when we've just been through months of kind of isolation and everyone, you know, basically indoors, and to feel like you are, it was more than, I think, just a festival in a traditional sense. And it was one of the rare uses of, you know, how like many festivals in last months have tried to do online versions, where trying to basically replicate what a physical festival would be like. This was different. So yeah, it just, I don't know what more to say besides that it was a pleasure to be involved in, and learned a lot also in the process about other scenes, and saw, you know, you can see there's this universality in it. There's also this uniqueness in that everyone gets to express themselves individually and collectively, and we see what we have in common, we find out new things. So it was really just wonderful. So
thank you, Sarah. I think I think you pointed out some key points, the other meaning of or what has, you know, framing this as a decentralization enable everyone to do things differently, and I like what you said about Pasar Alkisah as well, that it's like turning network of wider art and cultural ecosystem into a network of wealth as well, wealth of information, but also wealth of cultural products. And we have one last panelist in this discussion, Morgan Sully from LKW, L Klankunzwerk. Am I pronouncing it right? And Soydivision. Morgan is a Berlin-based American artist, musician, and organizer with Indonesian roots. A recent native to Indonesian collective Soydivision, Morgan co-develops theatrical formats to build deeper empathy, collective strength, and appreciation for people's stories. Sully also co-curates Soy and Synth, a monthly audio-video show featuring experimental artists from across many diasporas in Berlin and beyond. He also runs the label LKW, which celebrates our contemporary entanglements by developing experimental formats to reveal them through theater, album releases, zines, films, audio installation, and books. So, Morgan, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, hi. Yeah, I think mirroring off of what other people have said, I think, yeah, if I just speak freely, I think one of the things that was really interesting about this project and involving this project is here in Berlin. I mean, it feels like a pretty cosmopolitan city, and I feel really fortunate. I've been, I left Indonesia when I was very little. I lived there for a few years and slowly made my way more like west or east, I guess, west or east, I don't know, went towards this way to Europe. And here in Europe, I've actually been kind of digging deeper into my own history and the history of my family. And so this like sound emanating from this island, this Java, this place coming to me here and hearing through my ears has been really, I've taken it very personally. But I don't want to talk about myself as much as I want to talk about some of the other artists that were involved here. We had a remix album, and one of the kind of quotes, one of the things that one of the artists said, I'll read it here, which kind of really stuck with me, is this is from Galis, he remixed, I think, Kabau. And he said, as fellow Indonesians, and he's from Makassar. As fellow Indonesians, we always understand the beautiful lyrics that Senyawa wrote. Yet we are also aware that most Senyawa listeners can't even understand Bahasa. We're always wondering how most people can enjoy Senyawa songs without even understanding the lyrics. That is exactly what we experience while listening to Kabau, since it is written in the Minang Padang traditional language. We're not even really sure what the song is about. Finally, we are able to experience the pure sonic journey that Senyawa offers other listeners. While wondering what the song is about, both of us have a knight figure in our head riding on his buffalo, Kabau, ready to attack enemies. Through this remix, we want people to also be able to have this knight riding on a buffalo figure in their mind. So it's just very visual, but it's also, I mean, I think it really kind of gets at some of the kind of transnational, translocal, transgeographical kind of dynamics and context of not just like our collective, our two collectives. There's LKW, kind of the sonic syndicate sister of Soydivision, which is Performing Arts Collective. But also gets at, I think, a lot of why here locally in our collectives and, our ever expanding circle outward of some of the kind of things that we contend with and think about when we're creating our work. This trans-localness. The other thing I also wanted to mention too is for part of the festival, I've always been interested in, the poles of difference, east, west, black, white, male, female. The one thing that we did during the festival, and I think kind of riffing off a little bit what Sarah was saying about being able to kind of dive in and see your work contextualized with a lot of other amazing work as well, is that we actually ran the festival program twice. So for half of it, we ran it within a time zone that prioritized Europe, like where a lot of the other labels were releasing music from. And then we also did a second stream that prioritized prime viewing times for Indonesia, Southeast Asia time zone. And then by doing this, we could kind of work to bridge and kind of collapse the distance between people just being able to appreciate the work. So also shout out to Ruli and also Reza for spending 16, 17 hours streaming. Yeah, I think the thing that I most enjoyed from this project is kind of the decentralized collaborations that are happening, kind of baked into the project, but also some of the really sweet personalness that a lot of the artists took in interpreting Alkisah, whether that was with Ruptured, as I was saying, or as Sarah was saying, seeing some of the work position there. I thought was, yeah, really lovely. I just have a lot of love to share. I'm not sure if I have any much critique.
Thanks, Morgan. I think there are lots of things to reflect on in our the next discussion. I think all of presenters reiterate various aspects or things to decenter, because we talk about decentralization from distribution. In my notes, there are the idea to reimagine the meaning of resources and networks, and reflection on social, political, and economical crisis, and politics of translation. That's very apparent, and what I like about the idea of remix here, and something that you said earlier, Morgan, about the decentralized collaboration, because somehow it changed it has the potential to really change the power as well, that usually entails in the usual mode of collaboration. You know, if you're talking about the usual categories like East and West, or North and South, but this is something that really turn everything around, and maybe has the potential as well to make something that is genuinely co-shared and think about together. I would like also to invite the audience to start ask the questions, if any, in the chat box. But as a start to kick off the discussion, I want to ask, this is general questions for Ziad, Sarah, Morgan, and Sansan. How do you make connections between, you know, involving in this project and the existing principles of, say, sharing power and wealth distribution? I don't know how to word this differently. Fairness and transparency in your own social and political context. I know maybe for Sansan this is something that is familiar, because for Indonesian context, but I think you might have something to say about that. And also for Ruli, I'm really interested in the idea of what makes you and Wukir and Senyawa really start to think about the idea of survival and independence, like, I mean, away from the discourse of artistic and creative expression, but really taking it further and beyond that. I think that's my first questions for you. Maybe I don't know.
Okay.
Well, maybe Ruli can start first,
Okay.
or yeah.
Okay. Well, the idea was actually because of the pandemic, basically, because we didn't plan to do it this way. It's just during the pandemic, we both of us were separate in different places, and we, me at least, had a lot of time, to think about what should we do next. And then when we recorded, we decided that okay, let's continue this this project in a different way, because Daya Hidup dan Kemandirian was actually the theme that we want to explore again and experiment for the next 10 years with Wukir, and see along the way what will we find and what will we use. Hopefully it help us grow as a duo, or as a group, as a team, and to see where to bring this project in the future. And I think this idea, the pandemic really like make us ask a lot of questions, right? And how to do things more effectively, I guess. I think it's just more effectively, because and to do it more effectively, I think you have to ask again, what are things that make it not effective, and try to keep another questions every time you wanted to do something. If you want to actually do it like your own way, right? Because the industry is there. If you want to do it right, you want to success, use that system which is already being built specifically to make to everybody to use it, because they have, some people already know the way to do it. Why don't? But somebody else can also start thinking about things to do it for themselves, right? Which is fine, and see if it works or not. It's just more difficult and more challenging, I guess. But that's basically the idea, and then try to do it like slowly, I guess, also slowly. But because we actually don't know what's gonna do after this, but if we try to do it slowly, maybe we have time to always reflect and then make notes. And I think that's basically what we do. Nothing more than that. It's nothing about change the system or it's not about that at all. It's like you just see it as an experiment, as also which is integrating nicely with the artistic process as well, because we use artistic process for us to grow, right? And then we're now at that point where this is how we think about situation right now, and this is how we think we can contribute. I think that's it. For me, that was basically the drive, which is Daya Hidup dan Kemandirian is a very good idea. Wukir has a lot of involvement in this, in creating the idea of Daya Hidup dan Kemandirian, because in some way I see Wukir is already doing that. You know what I mean? So it's like so I learned also by watching him and how he lives. And I mean he's not like me. I'm talkative, he's more like doing things, and then, but I think by looking at the way he do things, I can contextualize it and make it like, okay, why this is a good way to bring people to do the things that we want to do, or like we used to do, or like we do. And then it's the mix between my how I see the world, and then how Wukir actually see it as well. And it's not easy to show that in your work, right? But this is, I think, a way to do it. That's it, basically. That's it. Yeah. And then the impact, and then now the story is left for other people to retell it in their own version, in their own vision, in develop it or change it, or maybe more make it personal. Everyone have the opportunity to do that now, by just letting go of the control of that, because the music that we create, the Alkisah songs, the album, is just the product of it, but the idea is yours forever. So it's not something that you copyright. That idea, that people say intellectual property, but there's more layers underneath that word intellectual property, I guess. I think there's more idea. Once it's there, right? It's there, and then and whoever but we go to a different topic. I think that's it from me. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess, but I guess that's
Yeah.
the beauty or the usefulness of engaging in arts and culture, right? Like it doesn't necessarily have to have like a target or clear impact on a wider system, but this is, I think arts and culture is the space where we can imagine like the world like differently. This is the space to think about this concept, and it can be realistic or utopian, but that's I think that's the way to experiment, as you say. And I would like to invite everyone else to respond to my question, if any, maybe Sarah, Ziad, or Sansan, or
just to build on what Ruli was speaking about, the closest thing that this reminded me of a bit in software development, open source culture, where exactly someone builds something and then releases the code for others to pick through and reinterpret or to incorporate into something else. This idea that from an idea, one idea or a few ideas, that many people can benefit from that, and many people can bring their points of view to that and to reinterpret that. I think in a musical context is very interesting, because there is this dimension of creativity and expression that you don't, like in some open source software community, it's kind of specific to that. But when it comes to music, this was a very interesting approach. And also this aspect of, there's a lot of talk, and to tie it with perhaps what you mentioned earlier, maybe about this podcast, about interdependence, with culture in the digital realm, and how the value of culture is in a precarious state at the moment, in terms of, again, going to this abundance and accessibility, and the control changes, power structures of the old world are kind of no longer fit for purpose in terms of how things are done, because internet has changed a lot in terms of that. There recently, with what's been happening with NFTs, of course, and this attempt to try to make something that is not scarce, it's also, the term decentralization is used quite often. There was someone named Kyle McDonald in the last few days on Twitter, who was discussing blockchain and its implications for culture. And of course, there are issues with blockchain as a technology. He mentioned something, or he made a very good point, that decentralization doesn't always have to come through technological solutions as such.
Agree.
That it requires, if exactly from a sustainability point of view, that it requires, first of all, an imagination. It also requires, and what you mentioned earlier, negotiation, this communicating with others and deciding what will be fair, as opposed to creating a framework and then either excluding those who don't agree or imposing it on those who don't want to be left out. I think that's what really made Alkisah very timely. Whether that was the intention or not, I don't know, but the moment it's very much, within this scope of what I think a lot of artists are having to think about if they don't already have, they're already established or tapped into some network where it works for them. There are a lot of people who are wondering kind of, how do I navigate through this, especially in pandemic times? So yeah, that's.
Wow. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's the big question that's also trying to address by across art field as well. Like I also see this in the contemporary art practices as well. How to make things more open, like dealing with the question of authority in a wider sense. And also, it's very I like you make a connection between Alkisah and open source as well. So in a way, we can also see Alkisah like a software that is like an open source based software as well. I'm still wondering like whether Ruli or Wukir have thought about other names like other than decentralization. Maybe like a power diffusion or something like that. Not sure. We have questions from. Wow, we have already 3 questions. So first, I will just read it, and then it's up to you who's going to address this. First is, how replicable is this model for music releases? Are there artists among the networks in the participating labels who would be interested in trying a similar approach? Maybe shall we go one by one? So Morgan, will you answer this question?
Yeah, I can tackle one of them too. Okay. I wanted to add something a bit before I hop into what Sarah and Ruli had mentioned too. Yeah, with the open source, I thought that was really interesting, and moving away from this technological determinism where, oh, technology solves like this problem. I want to be very conscious of that. But kind of also tying to the independence and survivability that Ruli was mentioning earlier. I know that when you have a multitude of small experiments running at the same time, or when you have mutations that are all running at the same time from like a biodiversity lens, you have a greater probability of collective survivability. So if you have like, when we look to say the Amazon, or we look into densely populated ecosystems that have a wide range of life forms in them, these tend to be really rich, and you get these really interesting, I want to also be careful of independence, but you get these interdependent and symbiotic relationships that can kind of mutate and evolve into longer sustaining relationships for the whole. So it's interesting you mentioned open source software, because I also think in that you have forks, of like the core. And when you have these forks, you get, if you look at Linux, like, oh man, you got like Linux that can run off a USB stick on 28 kbps modems for activists. You have super hacker, super secure open source that, okay, is maybe a 2 gig like operating system as opposed to a 256 megabyte operating system. But you get these variations. And so the variations, like this project, like the remixes that have come out, I think are fascinating, and I think something to kind of look at. And to answer Stephen's question, he was talking, he's an anarchist. Different models for making side note already, but it makes me curious what lessons you think other musicians and producers who perhaps don't have the existing range of skills and networks might learn from this as a project. I think there's a book I was reading, it's like a it's like a how to make electronic music book. And it's this book, it's written by this Daniel DeSantis, I think. Dennis DeSantis, who I think writes some of the stuff for Ableton. But he's saying, if you think about it, all musicians are actually at the intermediate level. Because if you say, oh, I'm just a beginner, then say, oh, what makes you think you're just a beginner? Well, I don't know this and this. And it's like, oh, well, what do you know? Well, I know a little bit of this and a little bit of this. And if you get someone to start talking about what they know, it can actually amount to like quite a bit that they might know. Oh, well, I know I need to download software. Like that's actually a big thing for some people. Oh, whoa, you download and install software. So taking that of maybe reaching out and thinking about what you do know as far as a musician with existing range, skills, networks, if you start thinking about maybe who you might know or other people that you've spoken with, and particularly with the internet, your geographic range isn't necessarily limited to the people in your locality, but could also be connected through these different kinds of online networks. Right now, we have a Discord channel for the Alkisah project, and a lot of the labels and some of the artists have also been sharing some of their methods for working on distribution in there. I'd love to get more knowledge about that because I myself am an intermediate record label, I guess. I'm trying to figure out how to sell these records here. But I think being able to kind of reach out and cultivate those small people that are already in your ecosystem, whether your ecosystem is an internet techno ecosystem or whether it's a people ecosystem, the kind of trying to map out the diversities in these can help kind of amplify your own work. So that's my answer to Stephen.
Yeah.
Is maybe just think of one or two people.
Yeah. Thanks, Morgan. I have a question. I'm going to take one more question from the audience, actually already a lot, but first, before Stephen, there is from Isma. Maybe any of you can answer this question. How does the audience react to the massive amounts of decentralized releases? Does it translate well to a more sustainable future for artists and releases? I don't know, maybe Ziad or Sansan can answer this question. Or maybe yeah, Ziad.
I'm sorry to say that I don't know how the audience reacts. It's we don't really have we haven't had much feedback from the local audience as to this particular release. Yeah. So I don't know how to answer this question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I think I was about to say that this is also still at the earlier stage. So maybe this kind of question just needs to wait until this project evolves over the years, maybe. And there is a following up question. As a following to what Stephen questioned earlier, it says here, it's a quite difficult one. With all its utopian ambitions, would you consider this project still falling along the lines of neoliberal capitalistic thinking? How different is this from international brands adapting to local markets and local taste by using local ingredients and using local brands? How have the participating labels, and most especially the participating artists, dealt with the discrepancies of power and visibility, ownership, and openness? I think it's a very good question. Maybe, I don't know.
I can answer it.
Yeah, sure.
I think if you ask the difference with this and then franchising, is the difference is where we place the value. The value is with franchising, the value is money. here you can see the value is money and many other things else, many other things, as we can see from all the. I think that's the answer, because the strategy is the franchise is still have a hierarchy. The owner is still KFC, you know. It's not the somebody who sell KFC. But this is not. This is everyone actually own this. Everyone has the Senyawa have similar rights to the labels who are participating, exactly the same rights. So yeah, that is, I think, so by putting it on a different value, which is on sharing and not on the money, I think it's completely changed the mindset.
Yeah, I think I have this thought that Alkisah is really a story of global distribution, but also I don't know, we can explore more about this. It's like really turning a record, which is, you know, in the usual market would be regarded as like commodity of some sort, into a gift. It's like a gift because you have something, you put something really special attached to it, like what Morgan or what you did with packaging it differently, with adding jamu and then, or what San showed earlier. So that's that's the also the added value if we talk about using the capitalistic terms, right? But that's a different kind of value because it's like a translation. You know, there is the product of translation, so it's not like the value that usually added in the usual capitalistic system. But that's something to think about, I think. But there is this the whole translation is a process which makes Alkisah turning into a gift, and then when you sell the album, it is like becomes commodity, and then but you like there is like a, you know, that's how I read from Alkisah. So I was also wondering, like, to Morgan, for example, what kind of process that like, how did you decide on particular treatments to your own version of Senyawa? I'm going to put this jamu, you know. So yeah, that's I was thinking about that as well. Yeah.
Well, I can speak a little to that. So I should probably speak a little bit about Soydivision also. So Soydivision is a performing arts collective here in Berlin, and we work a lot. Gastronomy has been has developed, kind of incubated into kind of a business. It's an actual business that is able to also bring in revenue, but it really supports a lot of the other stuff in the collective. The food entity itself is Lokarasa, so it's its own thing. But then there's the umbrella of Soydivision, which has a host of different projects underneath the Soydivision umbrella. There's also like a Verein, like an association now. There's also some performances that we're developing. And then there's LKW, which is kind of we say it's the sonic sister, which does a lot of the sound. So I kind of manage a lot of this stuff for LKW. LKW existed a bit before I did, but has kind of grown to expand to a lot of different kinds of sound, aural and audio outputs. For our Alkisah album, and I should show you. This is ours. So what we did with ours is we actually mixed in kukurma, turmeric, into the paste. So this is like a traditional, a common ingredient that's used in a lot of Nusantara food, and actually around the world. It's a spice that has traveled thousands and thousands of kilometers into so many different local markets. And then on the back is our QR code. So we're like super techno because we're here in Berlin. You scan it, you come to a website. So this is just one package of it. And we too, Ziad, we're working with Rabia, and he has just been amazing. He's been such an amazing coach to us as like a fledgling newbie record label for LKW. The record label is actually my room with like a stack of cardboard boxes ready to ship. So for the design and for some of the way that we packaged it, so Masel, Ariel, is kind of the brain thinker for a lot of our projects. He had already been developing some jamu with our friend Gugi here. And we thought, oh, wow, this would be like a great source of sustenance, nourishment, Indonesian pride in what we do here. So we had the sambal that we also, that Soydivision or Lokarasa also makes, and jamu that Lokarasa also makes. Yeah, and then the record part, that's the stuff that I kind of manage. So that's kind of how we came to work together under kind of this umbrella. Yeah, we thought it would be nice to have these, it would be important to have these references and also fun. I mean, it was great. Sambal and jamu with a record, like, yes. So we took photos and we sent to Ruli and Wakir when they made the open call for it. Yeah, I've been working on packaging and distributing it, but that's its own interest. It could probably be its own panel discussion on logistics and distributing things internationally. That's kind of one of our challenges right now because of COVID and figuring out how to match demand and stuff and resources. I don't know, does that get at what you were?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm also still thinking about the previous question. I don't know, maybe, I mean, based on your reflection as well, and maybe Ruli, how do you also think about like this question earlier with this kind of scheme, like a global distribution scheme? How are you selecting, or do you even go through that selection process and to think about like power and then visibility of record labels, and then how did you envisage that, like in the beginning of the process, or you just let it open, you know, and then
open, it was an open call, so it was open. So anybody, literally anybody can email us, but they have to, if I don't know them, they need to let themselves know, introduce themselves nicely, and show what the vision of the label. We said in the poster, in the announcement, is the present your vision or something like that. So it's not about show what you got, you know. It's like, so it's not showing how big your label is. But what is the vision of your label? That's what we need to know. What is more important to be involved in this project? First we need to know are also in with the idea of experimenting with this team. Yeah, so it's only like that. That is basically the kind of selection process. Of course, we have recommendations also. For example, like Ruptured was recommended by Rabia, and absolutely, you know, and they also have Hani Haya on board with them as well. They're all friends, and yeah, so something like that. So yeah, no, not really. It's all based on negotiation. I mean, personal email. You know, they email us, you know, tell the stories, what they want to be involved in this, and then we see. We have also a couple of emails that were now I'm not really vibing it. There are a couple of that, just with the language, like yeah, like yeah, maybe it's not gonna be the priority to reply, so maybe we reply if we have time, but it's not gonna be the priority. We're more interested in this, emails, these labels are emailing us who are more interesting because they can present themselves well. I think that's basically the only, how we do it in the beginning. So there was no, in terms of how we're going to distribute it, we don't, as I said in the presentation, it's all just letting go, trying every time we're facing with another thing to decide, let's talk with the other, see how they think. So it's all about trying every time. Whenever you think you have the control of it, think again, maybe you don't have to. See, let's see if it unfolds itself, like maybe it resolves itself. So the power is, just learn slowly to let go. Of course, there will be problems here and there, but that's where we can be involved or trying to resolve somehow. But other than that, I think the labels manage to, to do things their own. They have their own style, their own pace, their own way of doing things. I think the best way to handle this a project this massive is just letting it go. I think that's the difference. If again with the franchise system, there's no control here, and yeah, I hope the labels feels that, because every time there are doubts, they normally will ask questions. Can we do this? We never say no, man. We just accept on some of the things like that might interfere with the others project, like the centralized platform in Spotify, for example, because in order to put the album in Spotify, you have to be, that means you will own the right to the album. There will be one power there then. So in the end, we decide, okay, no Spotify for the album, but for remixes, do whatever you want because that is yours. But the album itself, because it's also being distributed by so many other labels, they have to think like, well, if somebody have it on Spotify, that means only that one label have the power, right? And it will ruin the whole integrity of the album. Not even Senyawa. Senyawa, in a way, maybe is allowed to, okay, maybe only Senyawa official have it on Spotify, but we didn't do that because it will ruin again the concept, because what we're experimenting here is again is the letting go of the power. So if you do that, then so again, an experiment is not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna resolve, like change the industry. It's not gonna is utopia in a way, but at the same time we're doing it and making it real a bit by bit, at least for us, and hopefully with the labels involved. And I think that's more than enough, because from there you will see it will develop itself, hopefully, if these connections are being utilized and actively utilized, because these new centrals that are everywhere now have the access or ability to interconnect each other easily. The access is there, is all there. So it's not, so the story is not ours again. So it's now everybody's. Everybody can retell the stories in their own way. I think that's the beauty of this project. We don't know what what will gonna happen.
Thanks, Ruli. I also want to try to widen this discussion into, and also to go back to your previous intention. I mean, the base of this project to make us think about the idea of sustainability and independence and survival. I wonder whether Sarah or Ziad or Morgan can also share about the existing I don't know, principles or something from Middle Eastern context, maybe something that very similar to sharing culture, but maybe not really. You know, something that like a wisdom or local principles that you can think about, especially during the crisis. My intention is what I'm trying to get at is what makes you think about this project while also thinking about the social, political, and economical crisis in Lebanon or in a wider Middle Eastern context. You have something to say about that?
Sorry, I wasn't here. I lost my connection. So can you repeat the question?
Yeah, my question is to invite you and Sarah maybe to share stories about the connection from this kind of distribution and the idea of creating a more independent network of sustainability with existing principles of sustainability, if any, in your own context, and basically just try to think about making connection between this project and your own in your own context.
Well, in our
like
case,
how the art and culture ecosystem in Lebanon, like at the moment, and then how you can easily make connection or relate with this project.
Sarah, I'm going to go first if you don't mind. In our case, you have to envisage what Lebanon is like today. We've been dealing with a massive economic crisis and with social unrest and a devastating explosion that took out half the artistic neighborhood of the city. So the Alkisah project and the idea of the Alkisah project came just after all of that. So for us, it was very much a breath of fresh air and something we could sink our teeth into that would distract us from what was happening around us. The music scene and especially the alternative music scene, the musical events, activities, etc., are all on standstill in Lebanon on account of the pandemic and on account of what's been happening in the country. So we don't really have a cultural scene that is functioning properly and normally right now. We don't have a musical scene that is functioning properly right now. It's all, it's basically all patched up, and we're trying to make small events and small small activities and it's very much a very small set of individuals trying to make even smaller things happen. So in the case of Alkisah, for example, if we hadn't put together if 4 or 5 people hadn't gotten together to do it, it would not have happened. So from on one hand, Hatem, who designs for Studio Safar, on the other hand, Raed Yassin, who translated the creds for us, a designer here, a person there, etc. Alkisah only came together because a group of people decided that they could make it happen, and then there was the problem of being able to pay for it, which is something that is very tough for us because we don't have access to our bank accounts anymore on account of the government seizing control of our bank accounts. And then after paying for it and having the vinyl ready, and this is something I mentioned yesterday in our pre-conversation, there was the problem of how do we get it to Lebanon? So for us, Alkisah is really much a struggle, and it's something that that we had a lot of difficulty putting together, and we're so happy that we could do it and put our name on it and have the Arabic inscription on the cover. And for us, the album is very much a tale of struggle and resistance. And even getting a few copies here, we did it by having Rabia send 6 copies to this little town in Italy because we had a Lebanese friend who was coming here. And so this Lebanese friend brought us 6 copies in his luggage, etc. It's you have to sort of visualize a country that is slowly sinking and trying to produce a record as it's sinking, which for us was a beautiful image, and it's one of the reasons why we said yes, let's do this, and yes, let's commission remixes, and yes, let's participate in the bazaar. And but things are a bit difficult for us right now. So it's difficult for Lebanese musicians to talk about a musical scene, an artistic scene, a cultural scene, and how Alkisah fits into that. For us, just being able to do Alkisah was an achievement in itself. I don't know if this answers the question, but I'm just trying to relay the circumstances in which we were able to put together this album with Ruli and Wukir.
Thanks so much, Ziad. I think, yes, you really capture my questions very well. Maybe I didn't word my question properly, but basically you answer my question, because my idea was how can Alkisah able to narrate the current social political climate in your own context. That's why my question. And yes, thank you. And I really love how you say that doing Alkisah, but not Alkisah itself as a record, is already struggle and resistance. And in a way, this encapsulates the whole thing. Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah. I understand from Maya that you might have to leave early, so I encourage everyone in the audience that maybe wants to have a specific question to Ziad to drop the question as soon as possible.
Oh no, I don't have to leave.
Okay.
I don't have to leave, but since I still have your attention, I would like to say something about that. I would like to say something about the Jordanian edition of Alkisah, which Sarah can tell us about in a few seconds. The Jordanian label, Drawn by Locals, did a beautiful interpretation of Alkisah for the remixes and for the album itself. I think the album was a leather pouch. And then the remix was accompanied by a doll, which Sarah can tell us more about. But it's so much more interesting that what we did in Beirut. But I think it should be mentioned in this conversation.
Yes. Before Sarah mentioned, I really I forget my initial question. I already noted it down about the talisman and all. So yeah, Sarah.
Well, no, it's really, when I received it, like I was already marveling at the photos when they had sent them to show us, but the level of detail and this handmade, you know, each one, you can tell like it was part of a process that required quite a delicate touch. But yeah, I mean, I can't speak to the situation in Amman. Of course, every city in the region has its own thing going on. But as far as bringing together different artists, also they, Drowned by Locals, it was 8 of us in total. I think half of them were from Jordan, and the other half were from around the region. It was extremely nice to see kind of, in the end, and this is to tie also perhaps with the question about how does audience react to such a massive amount of different releases, and as well as this point, question about neoliberal capitalist. What's really interesting is that hearing everyone speak about this, I think what we all have in common is that this is something we took pride in. This is something that also, which Ziad pointed out, everyone's context is so different. And there was a personal stake in this, even though it started initially as a project by Senyawa, it was carried on and there was freedom given for everyone to, depending on their situation, to interpret it differently. The scene, for example, I can speak about in particular in Cairo, when it comes to labels in Cairo and culture sector in Cairo generally, is that the support mechanisms are few and far between. You have a few international foreign organizations who act locally, who provide funding, for example, which has, of course, a soft power political dimension that is always there. There is also the general political environment in terms of basically people trying to put on events and trying to do something, but they are always up against environmental factors that are hard to overcome sometimes. In the end, labels and people who organize festivals and stuff, in order to publicize or to reach a bigger audience, they need to then rely on what I don't usually like, like East versus West or whatever, but like Western networks when it comes to media, and that you're sending to the same, like the work to the same like 3 online magazines or websites or whatever. What's different about this is that it's kind of, so everyone's context is different, everyone takes pride in the work that they're doing, and then through everyone else's work, say one label needs help with distribution, they are already, how they found out about this project, or how they are communicating, whether it be with Senyawa or another label in the same city or whatever. There's this kind of, also to tie in with Sansan and that DIY kind of this, everyone is kind of helping to facilitate for everyone else, and depending on capabilities, you can access then those who have perhaps more power in that structure to help with that, and to kind of do it in a way that is suitable for your local audience. And at the same time, because it's part of this big project, that you also, without having to rely on some website that covers music or whatever in a very commercial sense, people then can find out about what you do. It's, again, tying to the festival, it's, you get attention or recognition in that sense in the midst of everyone else. And in terms of audience then reacting to massive amount of releases, I think that very often, since attention is limited, it's kind of through what is within your own, proximity. You find out, like, if it's in the region in the Middle East, so people who are familiar with these labels then find out maybe perhaps about the project, but then someone in Indonesia can find out about, Drowned by Locals in Jordan, because there's this connection between the two. So it's kind of, this is very different, I think, from, I don't know, do people take pride in like Pepsi or something being locally available? I don't know, but this is different, definitely fundamentally from that, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really actually the question about or the elaboration about infrastructure is very very prominent in this in our discussion. I mean it's discussed in differently, and I think it all goes down to that, like creating this global distribution scheme, which is in a way it also a way to talk about creating different kind of infrastructure, and then when everyone else who are involved in this has their own stories about uh, cultural infrastructure in their own context. So I guess this is it's interesting to see maybe yeah, as a lens to see global connection differently, not necessarily capitalism, but just global connection when everyone else able to connect, and then we find specific spaces in there. We have questions actually. One more question from Rizky Sasono. Hi, Rizky. Is following up my previous question or statement about the ambiguity of market economy and gift economy in this project. May I ask the economic parameter of Alkisah release? This is the questions to participating labels. How much money does one label put in there? Does record label the same gain profit like in other releases? Is there a distinction on the production? In terms of gift economy, Senyawa did their part. What about the label? Is there parameters wherein this release is considered within gift economy? We have just heard about the Lebanon story, but what about European, US, or even Indonesia labels? So I think some of this question Ziad already answered, but maybe if you want to add other details, that's okay. Or maybe Samsan, you want to respond to this question, especially about the question about the production, your experience in producing Alkisah in Chaos Non Musica, and the imagination or the speculation about the profit. That's the question, I guess.
Well, in terms of Chaos Non Musica, actually, the profit is something that come later, because what we perhaps Chaos Non Musica is not the right the right collective to answer this question, but in our experience with this question, we actually put more on the artist itself, how they feel comfortable to do what they want, for us to give them platforms to be involved something that together we can be like support system to each other, for them to release their artworks without limitation. And speak for the economy wise, it's something that come later. To be honest, that's how Chaos Non Musica see it actually. So I don't know if if Chaos Non Musica is the right collective to answer this question. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, because
yeah, please continue.
Sorry?
Yeah, please continue. I don't want to interrupt. Sorry.
Yeah, but anyway, if we can go back a little bit to the previous question about how this, if it's still possible, if we may, can we? I would like to answer about. We would like to answer about. Sorry. Is it okay?
Yeah, sure.
About what lessons and question from Stephen and then Muhammad Bisma. But anyway, I think what's a great thing about this decentralization project is while this is a concept that been a while for some time, it's already there for considerable amount of time. But what Senyawa did, it becomes one of the trigger for people to take this strategy into account. Moreover, in this pandemic situation, when like this is perhaps our chance to set like a new pattern for ourselves. You know, this is a trial and error, but it might be a way for us as a small collective based on affinity sense in chaos non musica. How say it, like this affinity sense, so we can share mutual desire and we can profit in it, but not merely about the monetary wise, but how you make connection, networking, and together you can sustain as an artist, as an label organizer. So this decentralization is the way like for you to adapt to the situation and learn together within your smaller scale to do something together and build something together. That's what I want to share. And also what if there's a question about what can we learn, actually, for example, a lot of friends actually ask, how can you do this? How can you do this? Because this is, you can have all the profit for yourself, but with decentralization, we share. Everyone can survive together. You know, everyone can, within this hardship or whatever, once you have networking that you can trust, networking that we can develop and collab and do something together. So I think we will survive. That's it. And the money come later. How profit, it comes later. That's, I think. Yeah, it doesn't mean we didn't care about it, but that also one of the importance of networking and collective base. We can try this method. And since Senyawa is the one who bring it into like global scale, a lot of people like notice it and start the conversation, even though before it was there. I think I just want to add that.
Yeah, thanks, Sansan. I think that's really great about the elaboration between monetary and non-monetary aspect of this production. I think that should also answer Rizky's question earlier, that this is also a valid reading of economical aspect of this kind of distribution, you know, like so commodity and gift economy, one thing, but we can also talk about the monetary and non-monetary aspect of it. And I like when you said everyone can survive together. I have one last question from the audience. This is for Sarah. As an artist yourself and a participant in Alkisah with your remix, would you consider this open collaborative distribution approach for your own future projects?
I think I would. I have never really worked with a label since I started. All of my releases have been self-released on Bandcamp, and Bandcamp has its own issues also, as much as it is the better alternative at the moment in terms of accessibility, but it is not completely accessible in terms of using PayPal and some of these other things. But I think that, yeah, if there is, since a long time, you know, remixes generally have become quite common for independent artists and more established artists. So to go even further and to, you know, if I ever become known enough for it to matter, that there's a release that can then be made available for others to work with and release themselves and explore, take apart, put back together, I would love that. I think that it takes, I think it's true that it takes being in a particular position to be able to start something like this. Whether it be network or otherwise. But I think that the potential there for many artists to explore different avenues of distribution, especially artists who don't want to put something on Spotify. I personally don't want to put something on Spotify, who actually their work, like my work is not licensed. I am not a member of a royalties collection society or something. Like, it's been just, you know, you make something, you put it online, and if people are interested or they like it, they listen, and sometimes they pay. And then this is kind of, it's an unpredictable thing. But if more people kind of exactly went with this open source approach, and not simply, like is usually the case, kind of curated a remix release, which is always like the conventional remix release sometimes has its also how it's done is not always equitable or fair, as opposed to what was done here, which was you relinquish power, you're not curating, there's an open call, sure, that there's curation as far as that is concerned, but beyond that, it's up to them. Everything from the aesthetics, the artwork specifically, all of that. I think, yeah, it's absolutely worth seeing more of. And also to answer maybe some of the questions that we're unable to answer now, because it is the first time. You know, we don't know if this does become more common, how that will impact, I think, the entire ecosystem when it comes to independent/interdependent artists and labels, and also the knock-on effect when it comes to the media networks and publicity and attention, and how also local communities and scenes can benefit from this. I don't know if that answers, but yes, the answer is yeah.
Thanks, Sarah, and everyone, and the audience who are already very patient with us, with very good listeners. Wow, we covered a lot of topics and issues stemming from global distribution to the deep discussion about fairness, equitable, and cultural infrastructure. So really, this is like an open avenue for us. Just taking on from what Sarah previously mentioned, that we can elaborate further to create more just infrastructure that's working for us by asking a very honest question for us as well. Like, what do we need actually to survive? Not only us, but also everyone in our immediate surrounding. So thank you for all the panelists and the audience. I'm going to hand over to Bo, who's going to close the session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nuraini, Ruli, Sarah, Sias, Morgan, Sandria, and everyone here for your participation today. And we will have two close workshop sessions tomorrow and Tuesday. It's pure data crash course led by Bani Haikal and live coding visuals with Hydra by Olivia Jack. Next month, we also have an open session panel about music and politics in Southeast Asia and two workshops. Check out our website, nusasonic.com for the details. Hope you can join us again. Have a good day.